Welcome to Short Game Long Talk, a video game podcast for a hectic life. I'm Eric and joined by my co-host Jess.
If this is your first episode, hi, welcome. On this show, we play short games that fit into a busy real world schedule.
And we do this because we think it's really important to keep your hobbies in part of your life, no matter how busy you get. And this month we played Coffee Talk, a game that we audibled into last month. But it's been on our list. I think we've been talking about this game like as a possibility almost since the inception of the show.
Have we?
Yeah, it's been brought up like occasionally. Like, oh yeah, maybe we'll play Coffee Talk, and we finally did. And this is a game that came out in 2020. It took me about 4.5, 5 hours to like basically do everything except for like a few minor achievements. And it was made by Togi Productions, and most importantly, it was made by Mohammed Fahmy, a guy who passed away in 2023 in the process of making a game I just streamed called After Love EP, and it's a very, very good game. Jess, how long did it take you to play this game?
It took me around 4 hours to play this game, but I did
Nice.
not like 100% it. I just played base game.
I'm very excited to talk to you then because this game is 100% worth it to do it because it really only took me like another hour. I think Nina went to go run an errand and I was like, "Okay, I'm going to finish this while you're gone." And I literally finished it in like 30, 40 minutes. Because you're able to it has a very good like all visual novels. So this is a visual novel, but it's a more I feel interactive visual novel because you're actually the only mechanic is to read dialogue, listen to dialogue, and then you make coffee. And you get to, yes,
And you have a phone that you can interact with.
that's true. The phone is pretty fun. But the phone is almost completely non essential except for looking up coffee stuff if you need to. But it's a complete bonus and it adds to the world building, which is, I always like when games do that. It's like if you dig into this a little bit more, you get to, learn more about the world. But basically, you have a nice espresso machine, and it's got a primary, a secondary, and then like I don't know what the final thing is called, but you get three ingredients basically to every drink you make. Um, and you can make tea, green tea, coffee, milk, and is there another drink that's in there like as a base
Chocolate.
or is chocolate, right? Yeah. And then the other ones you get like cinnamon, mint, honey,
Ginger.
ginger, and then you can also for all the secondaries and then you can add for the secondary you can always add more of a drink, but then that final thing usually oh no, you could do all three of everything, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But you always have to have some kind of base like the coffee, the tea, the green tea, the chocolate, the milk or whatever. And that's basically it. You just click those things and then if you made something that has like foamed milk, you can do all latte art, and that's it. That is the whole
That's
game.
the premise.
Um, and it's really cool because you do actually make some impact based off your choices of drinks that you give people. Because there's like some mysteries that people are like searching for the perfect drink throughout. And I almost got it on my second try on accident, which was sick. But we'll
I got
get
it on my
into that.
first.
Nice. That's awesome. That's so sick. And then because yeah, like they give you little hints and stuff through the dialogue, and if you pick up on certain things, but it is basically the point of view is you play a barista that has a coffee shop that is only open after midnight. You're like in universe super rich and don't have to worry about your clientele, so you literally I think only ever get at most four customers at a time. Um, and then the point of view is of you behind the
Bar.
bar basically, yeah. And you're just listening to people, and I don't even think there's a single choice you make like dialogue wise throughout the
Nope.
whole game, right? Yeah. How would you describe the art of this game, Jess?
Oh my god, it's so cute.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's very reminds me of like, oh my god, what's it called? There's this one like piece of media I remember back from like 2010
Okay.
that looks literally exactly like this, but I forgot what it's called. But it's like, oh my,
2010, you were 5 years old.
Yeah. What about it?
I'm just trying to think. Like 2010, I was a sophomore in high school. So I'm trying to think like what would that be? That's like pixel art. But basically, it's like it is.
It's pixel art. Like,
It's pixel art, but it's like it's not just like a couple pixels. It is a fuck ton of pixels. Like it is. You can clearly tell it is a pixel art. It's basically like if you've ever created art digitally and you accidentally made your canvas too small. That's what it looks like. Because you're like, oh shit, the pixels are a lot bigger than I thought, and they shouldn't be this big. But everyone is all the characters are super expressive and everything like that.
yeah.
How would you? I've kind of struggled to like kicking around the idea of like what is the world like that this game is based in, because I think that's a very important topic of like this is not a normal coffee shop, like this is not a normal world that this game takes place in.
It's obviously a fantasy world, especially once you see like the second character who walks
Hmm.
in. Um, but it's based on Earth. It's basically a world where monsters and humans, I wouldn't necessarily say get along because they talk about it in the game, but they live in the same world.
Yeah, yeah, it's basically like yeah, there's like your typical fantasy creatures and monsters all interacting in the same world, but it's not like super fantasy. Like we're just in Seattle. Like
Yeah. Like
uh
September 15th, fucking 2020
yeah, it's literally just it's just Seattle. And it's raining all the time,
all the
so
time.
it's very accurate. And it goes some wild places, it goes some deep places, but it also what it's very interesting. It scratches that itch of games that I'm like falling in love with of like I'm not the main character.
Mhm.
The world is happening to these people around me and I'm just kind of like passing by. I love that shit so much to feel like I'm just a person in this world instead of being like
All the things happen to you and
right. Or like I leave this town and everyone stops breathing, right? Like they don't exist outside of being a video game character until I come back into their world. And in this, it's like every night there's like, or sometimes you don't see a person for a couple days, like, and you're like, oh shit, what happened to him?
what happened.
Yeah. Um, but I'm trying to think like what else we could talk about that's not, because there's a lot to talk about, but it's very spoiler heavy because this whole
Yeah.
game is just story. So like we're going in like quickly into a spoiler territory because I'm like we've described the game. Um, but I guess my thought is, my question for you is like I've known about this game for years basically, and I've
Mhm.
wanted to play it. Um, and honestly, this was like one of the games that first popped into my mind when I started this like concept of this podcast. I was like, I want to play Coffee Talk, but I want to have like a reason to play Coffee Talk. But what was your first reaction to playing this game?
It was so like I literally was like, "Oh my god, this is so cute." Like I think I turned to my roommate and I was like, "Look it." But my roommate was like, "Oh yeah, I've played Coffee Talk before." I was like, "What? What?"
Yeah,
um,
it's on the Switch, which I've heard it's very good on that. But yeah, how did you like the latte art controls? How'd that go for you?
I didn't understand it for the like longest time
Yeah.
cuz I used to be obsessed, like obsessed with watching people pour latte art.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I tried to do latte art, when like traditionally when someone actually like pours out latte art,
Mm-hmm.
you fill it up with cream first and then on the top layer of the coffee foam
Mm-hmm.
is where you do the etch. So I thought I still had to fill it up with cream.
Mm-hmm.
So I filled the entire surface of the cup.
That's very funny.
And then I
You're just
went
like
to
holding down the button, just
Mhm,
pouring it until
just
it's about to
pouring it.
overflow. You're like, this is gonna be nothing but milk.
And then I went like to try to etch it out and I was just pushing around milk. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh." So I had to trash it and try it over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I also didn't realize that there's a mechanic where it's called invert.
Oh yes.
I thought invert was like a different etching pen.
Mm-hmm. It just like flips the way the pour is going.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how
Um,
did you that like this is really the only time it comes into play. How did you play this game? Like with a
on my
mouse and
laptop
keyboard?
with my
Mouse and
mouse.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Okay. Cuz you can play it with a controller and it's much better.
Oh,
Um because and normally like I thought most of the time Steam or games now in general when they're on Steam will say like, "Oh, like enjoyed with a like controller or
controller.
control pad or whatever." And because you can do multiple things at once. You can spin the cup, you can do a bunch of different things while you're pouring. And one thing that I never got to figure out with the mouse is the pour amount. We're talking about a mechanic that literally doesn't matter, by the way. Like you can put the most bullshit art and they'll still accept it.
Yeah.
But it's trigger based. You can pour a smaller amount of milk based off of how far down you pull the trigger, and I'm like, that feels
So
like
much better.
yeah, that feels like it has to be the way it's done. So it was very funny when I switched from because I was like, I don't care about the latte art, but I'm like, for the purposes of the show, how the fuck do you do this and make it look okay? So I like went into the subreddit and people were like, "Oh yeah, you use the triggers." I was like, "The triggers." Ah, controller. So I
Ah.
grabbed my Xbox controller. I was like, "Ah, this is much better." Never turned out that good, mind you, but it was much better. But how
That
did
was
your experience go?
I also didn't realize that I could turn the cup
Mhm.
until, like, my last like, my second to last day, third to last day,
Mhm.
because I was just playing with with the latte art, and then I
Mhm.
see that the cup got highlighted when I put my mouse on it, and I was like, "What? New, new?" I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god."
I don't think I would have ever figured that out if I played mouse and keyboard the whole time because it's highlighted like left and right bumper.
Oh,
Like it shows all the button prompts when you switch to controller. And I was like, ah, got it. That makes sense.
so I definitely need to retry this with a
Yeah, you can do
control.
because this game comes with modes. It has like a free mode and then it has like a
Yeah.
challenge mode where it's just like you do as many orders correctly as possible. I never really dove into that, but that's how you get a couple of achievements I didn't get. Um, but what's interesting is, yeah, like the latte art, there's a guy in the beginning who's like, draw me some latte art. His name is
Bailey.
Bailey's. And he like judges you no matter what, no matter how good it is. And then no one requests latte art again for the rest of
Ever
the game. It's
again.
completely optional, which I like. It's just like, yeah, this is a fun little thing. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about this game before we go into spoiler territory and really break down some stuff?
The music was so good. I
Oh,
loved the music.
the music is so good.
And I love that. So on the phone mechanic, you can go into the music app. It's like off brand Spotify.
Yes,
Um,
I forget
and
what
you
it's called. It like literally, I was looking up because as at the time of recording, it's March 4th, and
mm,
there's a sale going on, so I was looking that up, and I accidentally clicked on like the trailer, and like the first couple piano keys played, and I was like, oh, it's like the wave of relaxation just like rushed over me. One thing I will say that's completely not spoiler, uh, and it's just kind of the way I played it.
mhm.
I accidentally like immersed myself in this game because I have an ultra wide monitor, and surprisingly, this game goes ultra wide. So not only are the characters really fucking big, it's like stretched out like a bar, and I'm leaning on my desk with the controller in my hand, just moving dialogue around, looking left and right, like at people as they're talking. And I was like, I feel like I'm actually in the game right now, which was crazy. So I know your dad has an ultra wide, so if you ever get the chance to do that on his monitor, it feels crazy because I just caught myself. I was like leaning forward. I had the controller in my hand, and I was just like leaning and listening to what they were saying and reading, and I was like having to look back and forth because the monitor was so big, and I was like, this is crazy. Like I don't know if any of this was intentional at all, but I was like, I feel like I'm working behind a coffee shop bar right now. Like this is wild. And it was so nice because like the dialogue is so natural too. It was like we're reading. We've played, and then I've played as well. Citizen Sleeper 2, like a lot of very well written games this year, and then
Mhm.
obviously A Thousand Times Resist. A Thousand Times Resist is very well written, but it's
Very, very
confusing
well.
as fuck.
Yeah.
So you have to use a lot of brain power, whereas all of these other ones that I've been reading are like a lot more well, I can't even remember too much about the dialogue with Exocolonist because I played it so long ago, but I know I enjoyed the dialogue a lot. But these other ones have just been kind of like, they feel like just casual sit down and read books or mangas or a comic strip or something
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, this is nice and casual. Just kind of relax the brain a little bit and read. How'd your research go on? Can't find it.
Can't find it anywhere. What
But
else?
you were talking
Oh,
about the music.
yeah, the music was so good. Um, there was at one point where I just like left the music running
Hmm.
and did my homework.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I bet that's intentional for sure. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you can just access the music and everything from the like main menu without having to go into the game itself. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that because it is definitely worth it to do that.
Yeah.
The music is stellar. Um, okay, well, I don't think there's anything else non-spoilery to cover, so we can move on over to the spoiler section if you would like.
Yeah, I'm down.
All right, so this is your warning. We're going to talk spoilers. We're going to talk story, and I will talk about the quote unquote true ending that I got. And we're going to talk about all the characters, all their problems, all the solutions, and then some. So, we're very quickly introduced to the kind of the other main character of this game, which is Freya.
Right.
Uh, if you've seen Coffee Talk, you've seen Freya. She's the green-haired pixie girl on the cover. She's great. She's a journalist for a just the newspaper in town, and she also writes an editorial column in that you can read every day on your phone, which is cool. They got real long towards the end, and I stopped reading them
Yep,
uh,
me too.
because I was like, I know I'm close to finishing this. And her whole plot. This is how I think we'll talk about each character as they kind of appeared, and then kind of
Okay.
talk about their plot, and then that way, as they other characters are introduced, we can kind of like talk about how those plots go. But her big thing is that she is writing a novel, and her thing is she gets inspired to write it about the people at a coffee shop
Yeah.
because the other people that we meet on night one are Bailey's and Lua,
Lua.
Lua, and one is an elf named Bailey's. And if you notice his color scheme, he's dressed exactly like a bottle of Bailey's Irish
Oh,
cream.
really?
Yes, to a T. Um, and then Tua is a succubus. And this game does not hold back on like all the different bigotry uh, analogies that are in this. So, both of their families don't really approve of their relationship, one more than the others, all that kind of stuff. I have there's some vagueness that's referred to about different races that we will talk about because there's like Atlanteans, elves, succubi, dwarfs, ogres, orcs, all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
we'll kind of get into that later. But um, for the most part, that's Freya's whole mission. She's going to show up every night. She's going to eavesdrop on conversations, and she's going to write a book about it. While she's doing this, she's also trying to juggle doing her actual day
Full-time
job and not
actual job.
and not get caught. That's her whole thing. There's not much else. She is there basically um, to be a constant person that shows up every day and kind of be your she it's already established very early on that she is your one and only regular. Oh no, there's another person that is a regular too. But it's basically they are always there. She's always there like every night. And like I said, this is a coffee shop that's only open after midnight, and it's because that's why she goes there. It's because
Yeah.
like she gets off work and she goes to the coffee shop. Um, who? What did you think of her early on? I'm curious.
Freya, I was
Yeah,
like, I'm immediately before she even opened her mouth, I was like, oh, she's cute.
very cute.
um, but especially with the way that our character, excuse me, especially with the way that our character like was with how like calm,
Hmm.
collected. It was nice to have the like best friend in
Yes.
quotation marks that had the energy that our character didn't.
Yeah.
Um, my bad.
You're good.
There were a couple times where I was like reading through the dialogue and like, talking with Freya, and I just kept going, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up,
She
shut
does
up.
talk a lot for sure.
Um, but like, yeah, I think she's a great character, and like, I lost my train of thought completely.
You're good. She is a great character. Um, yeah, we are also introduced to Lua, and I pulled up a list of names because I
Mm.
was like, "There's gonna." I know most of them, but there's gonna be some I'm gonna forget. Lua and Bailey's. It's I want to see because I know he. I'm on for whatever reason the least spoilery thing because I saw art from. I just looked up talk characters and
Mm.
like it went to like I saw a piece of art. I was like, oh, that's definitely from the second game, and it's a character that comes back. So I was like, I need to go somewhere else. So shout outs TV tropes for whatever fucking reason. You're the one that has it introduced in the first game, introduced in the second game, and there's no spoilers. So that's good. But yeah, we have Freya, and then we meet Lua, who is like she's basically like they never really specify too much what her job is. But she is just like a she's a business person and she's
Yeah,
like she's super successful, like that is there's no doubt about her success. And her and Bailey's, I think they've been together for like 10 years or
yeah,
something.
10 years.
Yeah, and they're
Oh
not
yeah, because they'd been living or no
they've been pretending to not be
pretending.
together
Yeah,
for like for their family's sake, for 10 years. And yeah, elves are immortal, typical like fantasy stuff. These ones are immortal, not long living. Succubi, I would assume, are pretty long living, but not immortal.
not immortal.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of allegories to different races and prejudices and all that stuff that are handled from my view pretty well, but not super heavy handed. You basically you can pick up on it on your own.
Yeah.
Like orcs are mistreated for supposedly being aggressive and loud and just like dumb and things like that. There's the Atlanteans are trying to they're being barred from entering the United States basically as immigrants to do work and things like that. It's very obvious when you read the way
When you
things
read
are
them.
described.
Yeah.
Honestly, Bailey's and Lua, there's not much to say about them. They're just a troubled relationship that
Yeah.
throughout the game they get like a nice they have these nice little conversations with other characters that eventually brings them back together. And nothing crazy to it. The one big thing is that's pretty crazy is like if Bailey's leaves like his family to be with Lua, he
He
like
loses his immortality.
yeah, which is
He loses
pretty
all his like elven privileges actually.
right, which is pretty crazy. But it's a very good. I think it's handled really interestingly of like how uh he's very open to leaving his family, and Lua is like against him leaving his family,
Yeah.
and she's like because family's super important to her, and he's like I don't care about my family.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's had an up and down relationship with like extended family, I totally get that, right? Like I can totally see where like from your perspective, right? Your
Mhm.
family is very tight. Uh Cutting people off from your side of the family, like, you know, it might be easier for you because you're of a different generation, but for the rest of your family, it's like
Oh
that's
yeah, no.
big no no kind of thing, and you have to do something exceptionally bad. But for Bailey's, he's like, I've been with my family. We don't know how fucking old he is. He's been with
Yeah.
his family forever, so he might just be sick of them. And he's like, I don't want to be associated with people like that. And I'm like, bro, I've been there. Yeah, I understand. And I think it's handled really well, and their resolution of getting back together is very nice. Then we meet the only other human in this fucking game, a cop named Georgie,
Bridgie.
uh, who's who's very interesting. There's not too much about Georgie. He just kind of comes in right on cue when he needs to and like solves an issue here and there. Um, I like him. He's funny. He's just
See,
like,
the first drink I messed up.
oh really? What did you
Because
do?
he was like anything without caffeine
Mm-hmm.
and no milk because he's lactose intolerant.
Oh yes.
So I made him a hot chocolate,
Uh-huh.
but I
But you,
threw milk in there.
yeah.
And he was like, "Well, this is fine. I'm just not gonna drink it, I guess." And I was like, "Fuck, no, no, I
Yeah.
forgot."
You can go back and start a day over really quickly, which is nice because I did mess up one time. Because I accidentally like gave somebody regular tea instead of green tea, and I was like, "Fuck, that
Fuck.
was such a simple mistake." But yeah, you can just literally load a save, start the day over, and then just skip through all the dialogue, which is
Mm.
nice. Which
Visual.
every every single visual novel that has a calendar system needs this save system.
Yep.
It's incredible. Like it's so nice to be able to, especially when it's just like I think there's only 14 days or something like that you actually
Mhm.
play in this game. Like give me the restart. Like it's not that bad. But yeah, Georgie's pretty nice. He's a dad, he's a cop. He is kind of lazy but clearly cares about his
His people
area. Yeah. But then we meet a fucking vampire named Hyde,
hide.
who is, yeah, very interesting. Very interesting character. And one of the most, like, interesting vampires in modern times I think I've ever heard about.
He's a
Like,
vegetarian.
he's a vegan.
Vegan, sorry.
Yeah, specifically. And then on top of that, he's, like, old as fuck and he just switches careers
Every couple
every 30 years. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I would fucking do if I
and
was a
currently
yes, currently he's what?
currently he is a model for the beauty industry in the anti-aging skincare ads.
Yep. Which is very funny because he's a vampire
He's a
who
vampire,
doesn't age.
doesn't age.
Yep. It's very very funny. I love Hyde. He's a straight shooter. He's a good person. I like him quite a bit.
And he's so
Um,
sassy.
he's very sassy. Yeah. I would love to know like if somebody was cast as this character who they would be. And then to go along with Hyde, we meet one of my favorite characters, which is Gala.
Hella.
Um, which I thought was very funny because yeah, Hyde's story doesn't really go places. Really, he's just like he's there for a couple
He's
days.
there.
He's tied to Gala's story basically.
Mm,
But yeah, Gala is a big hulking man wearing a sport coat and a pair of scrubs. And very quickly you find out that like he's a werewolf, which I was like that makes sense because like he walks in and he has like bandages all over himself.
all
He's
over
hairy as
himself,
fuck. I was like,
scratches.
yeah, I was like, there's something with you. But what was very funny was I liked his little story because his whole story is just like you need to figure out what his secret calming
Drink it.
recipe is. Yeah,
Yeah.
because apparently in this world, all the werewolves have like their own way of chilling out during the full
Fury.
moon. The Fury, yeah, that's what it's called. Thank you. Um, and I thought that was really cool because like I you said you got it on the first try.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very nice.
Because he was like, I need something like not caffeinated, ginger, and I don't know. What'd he say
I
specifically?
think he probably said sweet. It would be
Yeah,
my guess. Um,
I think
so
so.
you because here's what's very funny is so you got it in the first try. I got it in the second try because on my first try he's like, "Oh, these are the right ingredients. Switch these," and I was like, "Fuck!" That's
Fuck.
when it taught me that like it actually matters what order they go in. Um,
Yeah, I didn't realize that until like my fifth time making a
mhm.
drink, and I saw the post-it note that said like one is a thin line, two is a thicker line, three is a big line, or something
Mhm.
like that. It's probably
Yeah,
switched.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, that's why the cinnamon latte that I made is just called cinnamon coffee and not cinnamon latte because I flipped
right.
it around.
Right, which is very interesting. I was like, "Oh, okay." There was a lot of drinks in this game that I was like, "I gotta try these in real life." Like,
Right?
some of them sound really good. Um, but yeah, his is very cool. And what was very interesting was when So Hyde, I was like, Jekyll and Hyde? Is there gonna be something with that? And then Gala showed up, and I was like, oh, Galahad, like from like Arthurian legend. And then uh and then his special drink is called Galahad. And I was like, oh shit, okay, cool. I was on the right track there. At least let me double check. I want to make sure it's Galahad from Arthurian legend. Yeah, King Arthur's Round Table. I want to make sure. I was like, I only know him from two things, now three, I guess, because Gala from here. But the other thing is he's from Fate, the anime. But yeah, Gala's awesome. Like he is such a cool character, and him and Hyde have such an interesting little story together of
Sorry.
like
Yeah.
of Gala being his bodyguard. And then
That whole story, sorry, I did not
no,
mean
go
to
ahead.
cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
But when Hyde, there's a time where Gala doesn't show up for a little bit, so you're just talking to Hyde,
Mhm.
and you're like, "So how did you, supermodel, meet and like become this friendly with Gala, the guy who works at the hospital?"
Mhm.
And Hyde basically like explains about it, and it's like, yeah, he was my bodyguard. But the way that he became Hyde's bodyguard was that they ran into each other at the club,
Mhm.
and Hyde was like, "You're my new bodyguard now." And Hyde was like,
Gala.
Hyde, yeah. Gallo was like, all right, sure, I guess.
Well, wasn't Hyde like getting picked on by somebody, and then Gala just like beat the shit out of people,
I
like without
Something like that
like
without like
Hyde was completely fine. He's a fucking vampire, and then Gala just like beat the shit out of these bad people. Because worth noting, Gala is like a war veteran, which I was like, I don't know if that's like a werewolf thing specifically, because we don't meet any other werewolves. So I'm
other
very
werewolves.
curious if that's like a if they send the werewolves off to war kind of thing. Um, so yeah, he's very it's yeah. Gala has a very interesting story about working at the hospital and being the one to like basically process claims and things like that. And he's basically the one in charge of giving people the bill. But he's like such a good-hearted person that he does his best to like make it as
Make sure,
cheap as possible.
yeah,
Because like that's another thing that's brought up, right? I think I think Gala says this to Bailey's of being like, if you give up your, have you thought about the like healthcare? If you give up your immortality, he's like
mhm,
healthcare. He's like, yeah, if you give up your immortality, like as an elf, you'll start having normal mortal problems, and like some things can cost up to like $30,000 and things
you'll
like
need
that.
insurance.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit, like yeah, it's like just that little subtle thing has nothing to do with us. We're just observing this and learning this information, and I was like, very good world building, like
Yeah,
so cool. And that happens like all throughout this game. Just these little things that you're like, huh, okay, so that's how this world works. But then next character we meet is fucking Rachel. We meet a cat. A cat comes into the room with Freya, who's Freya's basically here every day until like there's like one day later in the week that she doesn't show up, and then we'll get to that later. But a cat shows up and then transforms into a young girl, and I was like, holy shit, she's cute as fuck.
no, I like stopped and I was like, M, look at how cute she is.
Yeah, I literally in my notes I did like upside like an emoticon because my face was like a gasp when she like showed up. I was like, oh my god. And then she has one of my favorite lines in the game, which was like she just says achievement unlocked, and then an achievement unlocks as she says that, and I was like, holy shit, that's so funny. I love stuff like that. But she is a she has like possibly like if things were to go wrong, her story is like
Her
the
story is,
dark as fuck.
yeah,
Um, because basically she is a pop idol and she's a part of a crew and she's breaking off to go solo. But her dad doesn't want her to go solo. Worth noting, her dad, who we meet uh pretty soon, uh, he was a big like pop idol manager back in the day, and he kind of like is trying to convince her like, no, don't do this because the pop idol world is fucking terrible.
yeah,
um he's like, stay as a group, you'll be like safer that way. and or he wants her to stop doing music altogether, actually.
Together. Yeah.
Because she's 18 now, so he really doesn't have any power over that, like legally. And yeah, her story. We'll I'm kind of just giving a general overview of their
Yeah.
stuff, and then we'll wrap up their stories at the end because some of them intersect. But was there anything else like on Rachel that you wanted to talk about? Because she definitely like everybody else is pretty straightforward, and hers is like, oh, okay. There's a like she's an 18-year-old who's like run away from home. Like there's a lot of stuff that you feel like there's gonna be some stuff in this story.
Yeah. There was one point, it's later beyond, but like it's not super, like it's not towards the end of her story. It's like right in the middle where she runs away again and Officer Georgie's there.
Yes,
And she's like, my dad doesn't care about me. Like he doesn't care about, my future and blah blah blah. He's only to note, Rachel, her mother died.
correct. And she
And
used to be in the music industry as well.
Rachel's basically putting all the blame on her dad and is like, well, he's only acting this way because of mom's death and blah, 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 blah. And Officer Georgie was like, hey, I know you're mad at at your dad, but he's probably worried sick about you. Like, let's get you home. And that was like, I was like, oh, a father figure looking out for another,
Yeah.
like, daughter from another father. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
because Georgie just casually drops that he has like 4 daughters or something like that. And he's like, and everyone's like, "What?" He's like,
What?
"Yeah, I just don't." Like, I love that. Where he's like, "Yeah, I've been coming here." He's the other guy that's been coming to the coffee shop for a while. It's just the two basic ass humans, a reporter and a cop, are the only ones that have like been
Actually
regulars.
show up.
Yeah, but yeah, that scene is really good because it's like nothing got resolved, nothing was changed, but Georgie's like, "Go have a talk with your dad."
Yeah.
And I think it's really well done because I just watched a show shot up into like one of my favorite shows ever is Shrinking with Jason Segel and Harrison Ford and Jessica Williams and stuff. It's on Apple TV or Apple TV Plus or whatever. It's very good. But another thing of like teenage daughter and a dad and their mom, the mom had just passed away like a year ago, and basically like that of being like he's going through something too,
Yeah.
right? Except it's flipped, whereas in the dad is making the bad decisions and shrinking. In this case, it's like she thinks everything's the dad's fault, but like he lost somebody very important to him too.
Yeah.
And I think that's stuff that people don't realize during loss is like, even you can feel like you're completely alone and it's like no, other people lost people, someone
Too.
too. And it's very 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 well done.
Yeah.
I really like Rachel because they don't just treat her like an idiot, like she's an
Yeah.
18-year-old dummy. She's like she's taking charge and doing things that are good for her career and stuff, but she's also like an immature 18-year-old who's not realizing the importance of like listening to her dad, who we find out later was a fucking legend in, in
Like,
the music industry. And it's like, bro, if I knew that the whole time, I would have been like, listen to your fucking dad.
like go back home.
Yeah. But then we meet Myrtle, which it takes a couple days to meet Myrtle. But Myrtle
Yeah.
is a big half orc that comes into the coffee shop and just scrolls on her phone and drinks coffee and then says thanks and leaves. And I was like,
Mhm.
fuck yeah, I love that.
Right.
And then I think let me see. Trying to see. Okay, yeah, we meet yes, we do meet Neil next,
Neil.
who's so
Neil.
you find out his name later, but basically a fucking astronaut walks in and then has some of the best like text dialogue like noises in the oh god, I could listen to it forever. It tickles my brain so nicely, like the noise. I might put some in right now. Neil is my favorite fucking character. I love Neil
I love
to
Neil.
he basically is an alien who's trying to breed for his alien species, and he is like trying to, and he's not doing it aggressively, and he's like, I read that it's a good way to meet people and date them is through a coffee shop, and so that's why I'm here. And then he basically talks very like straightforward. And one of my, I guess I wrote down this one note of him saying like, date, date, date. Your language is extremely confusing because like you try to explain to him what a date is, and he's like, oh, like today's date. And like, no, 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 not
No,
like that.
no.
He's like, oh, okay, so like like,
The
oh, okay,
fruit?
the food. And he's like, no, no, not
No.
like that. And he's like, your language is extremely confusing. And I was like, yeah, it is. Um, but his whole thing is like trying to just learn more about human connection and dialogue and how to actually talk to people and everything like that. And he ends up his story ends up with him going to fucking basically this world's Coachella.
Coachella.
Coachella. And yeah, his story gets very interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about him later, but then we meet probably my favorite design character in the game,
Aqua?
Aqua. Yeah,
I love
I
Aqua.
I love Aqua. There's a little if you're listening right now and you see Aqua and you love Aqua, there is a little plush campaign for her going on right now. Um, so you can buy a little mini Aqua plush. She's very cute. Aqua's an Atlantean, so every time she comes in, you hear the door open, and then it's a bunch of squelching noises. It's very funny. Um, but I love I love the whole like meta narrative of Aqua talking about visual novels and things like that and being like some stories can only be told in this medium of video games. And I was like, hell yeah, dude, I love that. Because it's like this exact thing is like, yeah, this could be written as a story, right? It could be a book and something like that. But like the process of making the coffee, doing all that stuff, it like really puts you in the world of coffee talk and like being
Yeah.
able to scroll on the phone and get as much information or a little information as you want about the characters by going to their Facebook pages and learning more about them. I think is really really cool. But yeah, she basically is like she's a researcher. She does research into computer graphics, and then on top of that is developing an indie game,
Game.
which is really cool. And this is where I can bring up. We find out more about Myrtle, the half orc,
Mm.
and she
The
actually
king.
works for basically in this world's universe's world of like basically works on Call of Duty, right? Like that's basically what the game is, and she fucking hates it. And another really good meta narrative of like, it's the biggest game on the planet, it's the most popular game on the planet, and the person working for it fucking hates it.
Hates it.
Like, and they have a very cute little dynamic of like,
The researcher asking all these questions to the
right,
developer.
right. And then the other thing of since she works on the engine, like Aqua works on the engine that's used in the Call of Duty clone. Myrtle is asking all these resource questions because she's been asking them through the actual like official channels and not getting any responses. So it's
Mhm.
really cool for them to like slowly develop this relationship. They start showing up to the coffee shop together,
Together.
and they end up like going to a game convention together to like show off Aqua's game,
Aqua's
which
game.
is yeah. And then oh yeah, did you catch I just looked at my notes. Did you catch the like meme templates that were used on the newspaper? So
No.
like not everyone, but a lot of the pictures in the newspaper every morning on a new day, you get a newspaper and you get to read it.
Yeah.
Some of them are like meme templates, like the little girl in the yellow jacket, like running away, like is literally just like scanned as one of the things. And I think one of them is like the Wojaks that are like pointing and shit. Like it's so funny. So if you ever go through it again, there's some really funny like little memes that are in there. Um, but what else? Yeah, that's where I wrote down like for what I thought was these are just like you might have your own opinions on these, but basically the vagueness of the races and what they represent is like Atlanteans felt like, like Mexicans or
Mhm.
Hispanics. Else are I think white
White
people. Oh
people.
yeah. Succubi I think are Middle Eastern people based on some of the things they talk about, like religion and beliefs and things like that.
Hmm.
And then dwarfs, it sounds like the only thing I could think of with dwarfs is they sounded like they were Italians because of the mob. Like I think there's a mob thing with the dwarfs, and I was like, that's the only thing I could think of. Um, And then orcs, there's a lot of like this game came out in 2020. It's literally like the orcs are protesting throughout the whole time, and
Yeah.
it's very very much a Black Lives Matter like
Movement.
allegory and movement
Yeah.
going on with the orcs specifically, which I thought was really cool. I was like, damn, I
Yeah.
didn't realize this came out like in the heat of that, which is very cool. Um, but yeah, I have the oh yes, one of my favorite things. So about Neil, we're the next person I think we meet is Rachel's dad. Um, yeah, it is. It's the last person we meet. But I wanted to say one of the things Neil caught. Did you? I think I think everyone gets this. I don't think it's anything special. But he caught the spelling error in the dialogue. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice that. If
So
I might have. I don't
So
remember it
you
though.
say something and you
Yes.
spell your
Your
Y-O-U-R
OUR
instead of
instead of
with apostrophe.
YOURE.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, you mean your, not your." And he's like, your character's like, "What?"
How'd you
And it's so funny because it's completely text based. So like it's and obviously if you say your and your, it's the same, but it
Mm.
means different things, and it's so funny. But it shows that he's learning because now he knows the difference between those two words, and it was so funny. I was like, I had to rewind it because I was like, hold on, wait, what the fuck did I was like, did he just catch that? And I had to look to see if it was actually spelled wrong, and I was like, oh shit, it was. That's really funny. Anything else on like Aqua and Myrtle that you want to talk about?
No.
Okay. Then we meet Rachel's dad, Hendry. Mr. Hendry is, I think, is what he goes by through most of the game. But he's like he basically looks like Ron Swanson, in a sweater.
Okay.
Um, it's very cute. But yeah, he's tied to Rachel's story. We kind of talked about Rachel's story. He wants what's best for his daughter. He's
Yeah.
clearly not malicious at all. Like and his big concern, now we can kind of talk about this since he's been introduced. His big concern is that like the agent that she's signing on with or the manager that she's signing on with is like super predatory and
Yeah.
super disgusting.
I mean,
And
his name is literally like
I don't know exactly what it's called,
I
what his name
remember the
is.
last name because it's Lester.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's not like Mo Lester or something like that, but it's like basically like douchey McDouche face is like what would his
yeah.
name be. Um let me see if it's listed anywhere on here under Rachel's thing. No. I don't see anything. But yeah, he has like he's a piece of shit basically is all that really
Basically.
matters. But yeah, it's very obvious that Mr. Hendry like cares about his daughter a lot. Like, um, he even gets like the shit kicked out of him at one point to like because he heard people talking derogatory about his daughter and things like that. What's up?
It just pissed me off that
Yeah, I was.
learning that whole arc made me
Hmm.
so upset because Mr. Hendry walks in a beat up cat,
Yes.
and that broke my heart. And
Yeah.
immediately Rachel's like, just milk, milk, give me milk. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, no, he's in pain.
Yeah.
And like, it was a moment of the entire like cafe because there was Freya,
Hmm.
Gala,
And then Rachel and then I think Neil
Rachel,
was
and
working at that time
yes, because
because you can only
Gala
have
walks in
four
and goes,
people in at a time.
yeah, Gala walks in and goes, what's he doing here?
Yeah, yeah. Neil gets he asks for a job with you to learn more, and like basically everyone that comes in is like, what's happening? And they're like, as long as you're making the drinks, I don't care. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's so funny. But
But
yeah,
like,
beat
it
up Mr. Hendry is
is not.
not a good time.
But it's like a point where you see like the group like come together, and it's
Hmm.
like the little family of regulars because
Hmm.
Gala immediately calls the hospital, has a like bed ready to go, has the specialist
Hmm.
for Mr. Hendry ready to go, like going
Yeah.
in, and it's like, and Freya's there, and she's like worried and is
Hmm.
helping Rachel calm down. And it's
Yeah,
just like,
it's super nice. And then on top of that, like you find out that like why he's a cat is so that they don't know that it's Mr. Hendry that like
mhm.
fought them, so that it doesn't trace back to Rachel at all. and so like he had to fight them as a cat and not like a human form.
Human.
And yeah, that was rough, but it brings them together. And that's one of the, so this is where I can kind of bring up, that's one of the times where you have to make a correct drink.
Drink.
Uh, and if you do it multiple times throughout the game, that's how you get like the true ending. Because there's times where it doesn't matter throughout, like if you do it like perfect or not. But there are like I think 4 times throughout the whole game where they're like, oh yeah, just give me this or whatever, give me something like this. And were you able to serve Freya the sleepy drink on your first try?
Yes.
Okay. Did it give you a loading screen? Is that how you knew about it?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was so interesting. It was like if I wasn't paying attention to the loading screen where it said something called A Midsummer Night's Dream or something like that, or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't remember. But I was like, oh, that's a sleepy time drink. And then she was like, I haven't slept in days or whatever. I've been working on this because I got fired and I need this novel to be good. And I was like, motherfucker, you're going to bed.
You're
Um,
going
so
night.
I was like, I experimented a couple times, and then when I was down to my last like trashed, I looked up like what the drink was specifically. But I was like,
Hmm.
oh, how cool! Like the game through the loading screen showed me that like this is a possibility. Pay attention. Like if I
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention during the loading screen, I would have been like, I don't fucking know. Here's some tea. Go to sleep. Like, but yeah, that's one of the things that's like super important to like get correct to get the true ending. Did you before we go into like everyone's endings and things like that, did you catch the little detail about who is Lua's roommate?
No. I just
So,
remember,
uh-huh.
I only remember Bailey's talking about how, like, they had got together
Hmm.
and how he went out with her roommate first or something like
Uh
that.
oh yeah, that was back in
That was like
college.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
all I remember about the roommate, though.
I couldn't confirm this, but I think Aqua is her roommate
Okay.
because I can't imagine Myrtle living with Lua. And what happens is there's a conversation that Lua and Bailey's have after they get back together of saying, "Oh yeah, my
Roommate's out for the weekend.
yeah," and that's when Myrtle
Oh my
and Aqua go
Aqua.
are out for that weekend. So if you pay attention, it's like, "Oh shit, you're roommates with Aqua." I'm pretty sure because I don't think I'd see Myrtle with a roommate. Period.
Period.
Um, so yeah, I was like, "Oh, that's I love that like slight world building. Like that's so nice." And then how did you feel with Gala coming into the coffee shop as
I
in his werewolf form?
I was freaked the fuck out because the music changed.
Yeah, it's stressful.
And I was like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I gotta make a Galahad." And then I got to the screen and I went, "How the fuck do I make a Galahad?"
Yeah, like under the pressure, you're like, I forget. I've made it 5 times probably at
Times.
this point.
So I had to like I pulled up my phone. I didn't know if there was gonna have any repercussions, but I pulled up my
Right.
phone and I was like, "Okay, okay, Galahad. Okay, coffee, ginger or ginger tea, whatever,
Yeah.
honey." I was like, "Oh shit." And the way that Freya looked so scared too, I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, it's freaky. It's very freaky. I and it's like they put a lot of effort into that animation and stuff, which was really cool. And then then you find out why he was on his fury and not because normally what they do is he like locks himself in a room or something like that, and then that he was at the hospital because throughout the game, if you read the newspaper clippings,
Mhm.
there's like a shitty corporate like pharmaceutical company that's like they released a drug to repress fury, and turns out it has like super bad side effects. And so uh then they put out in the paper that like the government is making a new one, and that made people think it was ready. So a bunch like come the full moon, a bunch of fucking werewolves went to the hospital. And
Get the sedative, and there
yep,
was no sedative, so they had to like lock all the hospital or lock all the werewolves into other hospital rooms. And
yes,
Gala was like, "I will get myself locked up, like it's okay."
yeah, they
And
ran
as
out
he,
of rooms. Like he
yeah,
did normally he would have just stayed at the hospital and gone in one of their like cells, and like yeah, so he's like, "Hey, this was the only place I knew." Like, and I was like, oh, Gala, of course you should always come here when you're mad. It's fine. Yeah, that was his design as a werewolf was fucking sick though.
Yeah.
He looked great. But then, so yeah, we basically that's basically towards the end of the game. Tell me about the endings you got, because I'm sure you got most of the good ones and maybe like one not so good.
What do you mean? Like, okay, hold on. Let me just get my
Yeah.
like achievements out
Okay.
because it tells you all the arcs, right?
Yes, I think so. Because I got everything except for one that was like correct, and that was based off of the drinks I made. And I
Mm.
had to go back, and then going back, I'll explain this later because this will be complete news to you, which is very exciting because this was like when I found this out, and I was like, I can't believe we played two of these games in a row. This is incredible. But yeah, I'm curious what your end. If you got all the good endings, that'd be crazy.
So I
Because
got
Mhm.
Love of My Life, which is Bailey's and um Lua
Lua.
getting back together.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
curious if you can't get that one.
I like that's what I'm thinking because
It
like
has to. It probably has to do with because the ones that change their mind are Hyde and Gala,
mhm.
and so I'm like, I wonder. Yeah, I'm like, where could you mess up except for Gala's thing at the end? But at
Yeah.
that point, their stuff is. I don't know. It's got to be messing up the werewolf stuff and then not having that conversation or something. I don't know. But go on.
Um, I got Interstellar Support, which
Hmm.
is Neil being okay.
Yeah,
Father and Daughter, which is Hendry
Rachel.
and Rachel, and then
Hmm.
there's a spark.
Okay. So you did miss. So how did Freya's book go for you?
Oh, she got the deal
Hmm.
and is working on the next one.
Okay. So it sold well.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So you got the good one then. That's the one I missed. For I don't know what I did wrong on that. But yeah. Do you want to talk about? There's a spark.
I had been rooting for it the
Yeah.
entire time. As soon
Yeah.
as they both walked in, I was like, "Oh, I want them I want them together. I want
Who is
them."
this?
This is Hyde and Gala.
Yeah.
They end up realizing that their friendship is more than just a friendship and that they're in love with each other.
And what's the scene that plays out in the post credits, like or during the credits?
I went back to the gallery because Em and I were literally talking about how cute they were as a couple,
Right.
and then they turned back around to go back to their homework, and I'm clicking through the gallery, like, oh, this is cute art, and then the end credit scene basically for them is Hyde is coming back and is handing some like a bag or
It
something,
says ginger on it.
bag of ginger to Gala, and then the next picture of them is the same picture, but the ginger is now replaced with a pair of fuzzy pink handcuffs.
Yeah, it's so funny, bro. I was like, that's hilarious. Um,
I went, oh my god! But I tried going backwards, but it wouldn't let
mhm.
me like go back, obviously.
Yeah.
And Em was like, "What?" And I was like, "Hold on, hold on, hold on. You know that really cute couple we were just talking about 2 minutes ago? Look at this picture." And they went, "Freaky."
Yeah, dude, I love it. It was so funny. Because yeah, it's really subtle, right? It's just they're just two old friends who basically are immortal, right? Like,
Yeah,
um, yeah, I loved that. And yeah, that's where we find out that Rachel and her dad have teamed up basically. Like he came out of retirement to manage her, and it's like it says like it was a big deal that a legend came out of retirement. I was like, "Girl, you're not going to listen to your fucking
Legend
legendary
of a
producer
Father.
dad? Like, come on."
Also to mention,
Mhm.
the agent for Rachel,
Mhm.
basically there was a party that
Yep.
Rachel didn't go to because of her dad.
Yes.
And that party ended up being like horrible,
Yeah.
basically. There was a lot of like, it ended up with her agent getting arrested
Mhm.
for like exploitation, a bunch of different
Bunch of
things.
stuff. Yeah, because it pops up in the newspaper that morning, like that
Hmm.
there was like a drug bust basically at
Yeah.
this party. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, I saw it and immediately my brain went to Diddy.
Yeah, no, literally, like
I was like,
and it's not that's not an uncommon thing that happens in that space, which is the problem,
which
right?
is the problem.
Yeah,
Um,
that
but
was
yeah,
that was wild. I was like, damn, yeah. So I'm like, if you fuck up her story, like how dark
how
does it
does it
go?
end?
Yeah. Because yeah, her not going to that party is like the most important thing in this fucking game, I think. Everybody else is still alive and like well, if you like the
If
only
you
one that
mess up.
yeah, like everyone else still has their lives. And then Aqua and Myrtle, their little stories get linked up, and basically Aqua keeps going and working on her game, but she's not alone anymore. She's working with Myrtle, which is very cute. They were roommates. Is basically the vibe there. And I'm thinking, trying to think. I think that's everybody. Georgie doesn't. I don't think he gets an ending. If I don't remember, if I remember correctly.
I
Um,
don't remember it. I think he just stays at the precinct.
yeah. And yeah, that's basically those are all the good endings, right? Like Freya. So the first ending I got was that Freya published the book in time, but it didn't sell well, and she didn't get a second book.
Oh,
Yeah, and so I was like, well, that's clearly wrong. So I like went back and fixed that and got that. But there's another thing you can do, which is you go back to certain days because you can play through the whole game again, but you can go back to certain days to specifically interact and make these drinks correctly. And Freya starts picking up on stuff that you're doing because, for example, there is a situation where, let's see, yeah, so there's a time where like Mr. Hendry shows up
mm,
and he goes, this is the one example I can remember. And your character is like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Hendry," and it's the first time he's shown up. And Freya is like, "How did you know his name?" And like she starts catching on these things, and she's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like there's like a couple different
that's
things that she catches you knowing things. You as the player character knows things already.
Exocolonist 2.0.
Yes, and I was like, "How the fuck did we accidentally play two of these games in a row that has a time loop mechanic?" And because this one I didn't think was going to fucking have it. And then you go through all these days, and I think there's like 4 or 5 days that you go through and you make a correct drink. Did you make Neil's drink correctly?
The,
He has two drinks to make him.
like mint and milk one, right?
Yeah, it's like coffee. It's coffee and lemon, I think, is one. And then there's the other one. Yeah, that's the Milky Way
Milky Way.
galaxy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that gets him all his days correctly and stuff. But yeah, there's let me see, look at my notes real quick. Yeah, you talk about Rachel's dad, Neil's name when he shows up, and he's really confused about that. And you know about when Freya on the very first day when Freya shows up and is about to tell you about the book deal, you mention like, "Oh yeah, your book deal," and she's like, "I didn't tell you about that yet." And then yeah, it's really really funny to go through that. But then if you play through everything again, like not you play through all those days and then you play the last day again, I'm gonna send you a picture of a character who shows up.
Okay.
I'm gonna send it in chat because you get the post credit scene with everybody all successful, and then
Mhm.
you get this person that shows up. So I sent that in chat.
Hello.
Yes, they start talking to you and they're like, "Oh yeah, like we've met before," and you're like, "What?" And then they're like, "Yeah, I just came back from New York," and they're talking all casually and normally, and they're like, "Yeah, I actually used to work here," and it's fucking Neil
Neil?
is becomes like a gorgeous like silver haired man. Um, and I think what I sent you is from the second game because, or it's a different, like it's a mod or something. The clothing he's wearing is a little different, but it's basically that character. And he basically is like, yeah, no, it's kind of crazy that you've, because the thing that we didn't discuss is Neil's mission is basically to create a superhero,
Yeah.
for Earth to like always watch out for him. And turns out that's you, as you're the barista like god of coffee. And so he basically is like,
Okay, wait.
yeah,
So is
see,
that what the ending meant where it was like you've seen this before, you've done this before?
mm-hmm. Yeah. So the game is like basically Neil says like, "Oh, it's kind of crazy that like you've known all this stuff and everything like that." And he basically it's like confirms 100% because I said this early in the thing, like in my notes, like, "Am I Neil's kid?" And then at that end, it's like you're Neil's kid,
Neil's kid.
like, but you're like a god basically who can transcend time and space, and so that's why you don't care about money. Is because it literally
You're a
doesn't matter to
god.
you. And then Freya, when you get the true ending, her book changes from just about a coffee shop to the main character being a barista who subtly time travels because it's about you. And I was like, I fucking love that because
Love that.
she picks up on it. She's like, mm. She's like, yeah, it's about time travel, but it's subtle. And I'm like, oh, I fucking love that. It's so good. But yeah, this game was incredible. Like
Yeah.
I loved this game, and I'm so excited to play the second one. And there's a new one coming out this year. So, oh boy, there's gonna be
Oh boy.
a lot of coffee talk stuff. Because boy, am I excited to play this like in winter. Um,
Mm,
again,
very
because we
cozy.
played this in winter, but I want it like cold as fuck.
Just come up to
I know,
College Town. It
I
just snowed.
know.
It's snowing again on Thursday.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it was like 80 degrees this weekend. Um, yeah, this game, I knew I was gonna like it.
Yeah.
I fucking love this
Loved
game.
it.
I loved it. And like it felt so nice. Like this game is like the epitome of this show. Like this
Yeah.
is like the vibe I want. This is the game I want like every time to talk about. Like I kind of was worried that I wasn't going to like this game as much as I thought I was going to because I've like had it in the back of my head for years to like I got to
Yeah.
play this game. I got to play this game. I got more into coffee myself in the last couple of years. I was like I got to play this game. And the fact that it like surpassed those expectations is crazy.
I definitely like I didn't know about this game until you brought it up like most of these games. Or like I've heard about other games, but I had never heard about this game,
Mm.
never saw anything for it, went in completely blind. Um and like opening it and seeing like the art on Steam, at first
Mhm.
I was like, we're gonna see if I like this because I don't know
Mhm.
if I'm going to. Because like I love art in all styles,
Right.
but it takes certain like niches of
Mhm.
each art to get me fully invested in it.
Mhm.
And this was, I guess, that niche.
Yeah. I think one thing to mention that we didn't about the art is like, yeah, it's pixelated, but it's fully animated.
Yeah,
Like, and it adds a lot of characters. Like, there's, there's these little subtle things that I wish we would have brought up during non-spoilers, but like phones vibrating, like people just looking at their phones while they're having conversations, like there's like slight chuckles that happen. There's like all this like background stuff that's happening while you're like
happening.
talking to somebody else. Like especially for me on my ultra wide, I was like looking to my left. I would see Freya like look at her phone, jot down notes, laugh, whatever. I'm like, it literally feels like you're in a real coffee shop. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's so cool. But yeah, this I'm so glad you like this game, and I hope I've earned your trust enough to where if I
Oh,
recommend a game, it's gonna be at least to a level of good, right?
this podcast would not exist if I did not trust you that much.
That's true. Yeah. And I have liked the trend of basically just being like, I think this is what the third straight game that I've just been like, play it. Just play it.
Exocolonist,
A thousand times resist before
Thousand
that.
Times Resist. This, yeah, this is the
Yeah.
third game.
Third game in a row at least. There's been a couple more,
Yeah.
I think, but in a row it's been this. Yeah, this game is incredible, man. Like I'm so excited for this to play the second one. And then the next one. So the second one is a direct sequel.
Mm.
Called it is called what is
Hibiscus or something like that.
yeah, it's like hibiscus and butterfly is what
Mm.
it's called. Um and I'm very excited. I don't know if we're playing the same person. I know characters show up because it's still based in Seattle, but the new one that comes out is Coffee Talk Tokyo, which
Ooh.
I was like, cool, new place. Because I was like, I would play one of these games every fucking year if they keep
Yeah.
coming out.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's a 4.5, 5 hour experience. I think the second game. Let me look it up. Actually, I think the second game is a little longer. But I fucking, I don't know. This game is just like all the vibes that I ever want. Is this game
Yeah.
like?
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
so
good.
cozy.
Hmm. Second one is 7 hours for main story, but main story and extras is 10.5. So that's almost double for main and extras from the first game. So that's definitely a more like dedicated time,
Yeah.
which I'm very curious. I'm like, okay, this game is basically like the tagline for this game is to like showcase how much you can change people's lives in 14 days. Like
Yeah.
that's by just being there, right? You're having these 15, 30-minute conversations like every day for 14 days and like all of this stuff happens. And it's not just you, it's the people around you and everything like that. And it's the community that you build of regulars like you mentioned earlier. And yeah, it's like it's so good of how much you can impact people just by making a cup of coffee, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm very curious how if maybe all they did was go from 14 days to 28 days.
28 days.
Yeah, maybe that's it. And I'd be fine with that. I think
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that the actual coffee mechanic is a little more like involved because I think that'd be
Yeah.
fun.
I like the
Um,
mechanic of just pressing, 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 and then
hmm
it would press brew.
hmm
But like when I saw that it was a coffee making game, I also anticipated it to be like Papa's Freezeria,
hmm
where you have to like pour the thing and then mix the thing and then add a thing
hmm
and like do it step by step instead of
Right.
it doing it for you.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I'm like, you would have to nail that mechanic, right?
Yeah.
Because it is 14 days and like 3 to 4 orders per day. So I'm
Hmm.
like, you would have to nail that mechanic. So if they nailed the mechanic in the second game and they make that its own thing, I'll be stoked. But if they
Yeah.
don't, it's not gonna. I'm not gonna make it. It's not gonna make it any worse.
Yeah.
Like I'll still love it. Hell, they could just add like a fourth ingredient, right? Like, and I'd be like, oh shit, now we got a whole other thing, or just different types. Like, look, I love a good hot coffee, and I've like converted to mostly hot coffee. But I would like to make iced coffees or cold brews or things like that. I wouldn't mind that. But is there anything else you want to say about this incredible, lovely, cozy game called Coffee Talk?
I don't have anything, I don't think. I'm
All
like
right.
racking my brain, but
I
I
mean,
don't
we covered a
have
lot of
anything.
stuff. We
Yeah.
like this game is very bite sized, but it packs like a lot into it. Yeah, and like go play this game. Like
Go play it.
go read the dialogue. It's so well written. That's something we've been saying for 3 straight fucking episodes now. 4 straight episodes with Citizen Sleeper. And you just have to experience it. Like you just even if we spoiled the whole story and you follow a guide, like you have to experience the writing in this game. It's so cozy and it feels real. It's so well done. So
Yeah.
the trend continues of just absolutely like monsters of contenders for end of the year for deciding which of these games is best is going to be
Yeah.
so
It's
fucking
gonna be
brutal,
literally a bloodbath, I
and
think.
I'm so excited about it. Like I that's been my quest. But I will give a little sneak preview of what I'm working on for 2026 because I was like, how do I follow up this year with award-winning games or games that may get nominated, like if they're new games? Like Citizen Sleeper 2 is going to get nominated for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
How do I do that? How do I follow that up? We're going to play some of the worst games for 2026. Worst games that are bearable, though. I'm not just going to get shovelware that's trash. I have a friend from Spotlight Games named Cayman the Dumpster Boy who is giving me uh, he's giving me a list of games that are trash, but are either really funny, they're so bad they're funny, or they're bad but playable. So we'll see how many I stick to, but that's my hope for 2026 is just to make this like just pivot completely and swing the pendulum in the other direction so that we can kind of reset a bit.
Hey, listeners, I hope you know my face is just in utter shock,
Yeah,
dismay. Uh, yeah.
we'll see. I
We'll
mean,
see.
I won't be able to help myself though, because like say Coffee Talk Tokyo gets pushed back to 2026. I'm gonna fucking play that and we're gonna talk about it on the show, and it's just gonna. But you know, I don't know. It I just thought, how funny would it be to be like, here's 12 award-winning games. Here's complete fucking slop, like for the next year. Like, how funny would that be to be like, and then we can even put it on its head and be like, which of these games was the fucking worst, like for the end of the year, which would be very funny.
King of
Um,
the pit.
yeah, King of Shit Mountain, as I like to say. But okay, that's gonna do it for this. So hit us with the socials, why don't you?
You can find us everywhere at Short Long Pod. We're more active on Blue Sky.
Yes.
And I still don't have the entire handle. I think it's still just Short Long Pod at Blue Sky Official
Yeah, something like that. If you look up short game long talk on like
on
anything, we
Google
come up.
Chrome. We pop up
Yes. Google
before all
Chrome
the golfs.
specifically. Yes. Yes, not the golfing stuff, believe it or not. Yeah, we're no longer active on Instagram. I like slowly got rid of that. We're still there, so if you want to connect with us, that's fine.
Yeah,
Like we'll be there to respond, but we're no longer actively posting
posting.
on there. But where else can they find us? There's another place that's much
Yes,
more direct.
I was about to get there.
I'm sorry.
In the bio of our Blue Sky, of our wherever you're listening to this episode, under in the episode details or episode notes,
Or yeah, show notes, whatever you want to call them.
whatever they
Every
call it,
platform is different.
will be our link tree that connects you to our Discord, the Leveling Friends group. We're a community. This is my same spiel as all the time. Cute little community. My favorite channel in there is probably text or question of the day. Question of the day gets so funny sometimes.
Yes.
But yeah, you can meet with us there, chat, have a little community of small game nerds.
Yeah, and if you're a creator, you can come in there and join us, and maybe we'll collaborate. That's how a lot of this has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Chris did a question of the day one day. It was just like why or
Yeah.
how or something like that. I was like,
I think
yeah,
it's why.
it's like I know one of those days. Yeah, you can also find me on Twitch. I stream now every Mondays. That's my new schedule because that works better for people in my community. So Mondays, somewhere between 6 and 7 MST currently. That's going to change in like a week. I think I'll be on Pacific time now because Arizona doesn't change. We're correct.
Yeah,
And we shouldn't go on.
we and Hawaii are the only correct
Oh
ones.
shit! I didn't know Hawaii didn't. That makes sense
Mhm.
though. Yeah. So I guess by the time you're listening to this, I will be streaming on Mondays at 6 to 7 PST. But yeah, just we've been playing some Monster Hunter over there. I'm gonna be playing some games with Chris soon. Gonna be probably playing just random shit for the foreseeable future, because Monster Hunter is it's a fun game to stream. I love it. It's one of my favorite games of the year so far. But it's kind of hard to stream that game and talk and do and be entertaining at the same time. So
Yeah.
but yeah, if this is your first time listening, please leave a review, follow. Really helps the channel grow. Helps us get spread around. If you're returning, you can share us to somebody who's like, oh, they would probably like this episode. It was chill. It talked about one of my favorite games, Coffee Talk, which I'm assuming if you're still here, it's one of your favorite games. And yeah, that just helps us grow and connect with other people that would enjoy our show. But I mentioned this to Jess at the start that this game has inspired with the world the way it is. I feel like saying kidnap your friends is a little aggressive. So I'm going to try out something new for our sign off. And it's inspired by this game and it's inspired by the incredible barista that says it when people leave. So I will sign off and say, take care on your way.
Later.
All right. Are you smelling the mic right now? Thank you for giving me the bonus. I was like, if we start too quickly, I'm not going to have a bonus. And then you gave it to me. You're a consummate professional. Thank you. I appreciate it. Holy shit. That was funny.
Anything for my craft.